Hello folks, welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rudy O'Mega and it's welcome to my home. And my program, the name of my program is called Understanding the Human Animal. That's right folks. Deep down we are animals, we are humans, and we are also separate from the animal kingdom as well. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about things. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, I'm 60 years old. I just turned 60 this year, and basically I've been a hard-working guy most of my life. Since I was 17, 18 years old, I started working full-time doing manual labor jobs, and I'm still working full-time to this day. I'm still working an average of 48 to 50, 52 hours a week. Currently, right now, I haul diesel fuel, and I load and fill trucks all at night. So yes, I'm still working a hard job. And I've been doing that, like I said, for most of my life. For almost 40 years before that, I was in the tire business. I was working and doing off-road tires, doing on-road emergency tires, even night service. And for many years, that's what I did. Over the years, I finally decided I was going to change occupations, only for the fact that, I was just not a young man anymore. I couldn't continue on with the usual wear and tear and grind of that kind of job. But after saying all that, I have had a somewhat of a turbulent life. Most of my life, I have to say, was a rocky road, and there's been things I wished I hadn't done quite the way I did them. And one in particular is when I was almost 16 years old. And you got to figure this goes back to like almost 1980 to 81. I decided to run away from home. Now I grew up in the suburban Boston area, okay, and the town I grew up in was a fairly rough town, rough city, and I had to adapt in a lot of ways, and so I did. But one of the schools that I was in just before I left, I mean, in particular, this was it was a tough school, and it was somewhat tough. I mean, not to say I ran away for that reason, but I just felt like I was, I must have felt misunderstood. I felt I was at a breaking point. I really just wanted to get out, so I ran away. I took some money at home that I had from a part-time job. It was about $100 at the time. This was a lot of money. Well, anyway, I ran to Boston, took a bus to Boston, and without even packing anything up, without even throwing that suitcase together, I went down to the Greyhound bus station, and I managed to get me a bus ticket, and I went to California. I went to San Diego, looking for my dad. Now I stayed out there for months, and I had no money for food, so I was getting hungry a lot. Yeah, I lost a lot of weight in the process. I really did. So trust me, that was one thing that I wish I hadn't quite done the same way. And but bottom line is, through the whole process, I was gone for about 8 months. I was looking for my father. I knew my father lived out there, and I had a brother, so I had family I was looking for. And so after time went by, I mean, I was eating soup kitchens. I was, even sleeping in like bushes in Balboa Park. I was trying, sleeping in doorways, trying to find safe areas to sleep. But along the way, I just, like I said, I was like a babe in the woods, just trying to survive. And I kind of regret what I did, because there were many, many times I felt like I could have fallen prey, could have fallen victim so many times over to foul play. It didn't happen. I mean, God must have been watching over me. Somebody was watching over me, but it didn't happen. I did survive the whole thing. To make a long story short, I mean, eventually I ended up calling my mom up, and, she sent me a plane ticket, and I went back home, and I tried to make the best of my life and make amends with it, but I did. So I got a job, and I got back to work. Eventually, a few years later, I got my own apartment and went on my own. I mean, I've been married for 20 years. I'm currently divorced. I have been divorced for a few, so I've had a life. Right now, currently, yeah, like I said, I bought a home. I bought a modest home, and there I am sitting right now. So my world, my whole life is actually led me to this point right now as I sit here, as I'm recording this video to you now, reflecting back on what I did, some of my experiences in life, and I figure, you know, I have things to offer. I have some experiences that would be beneficial to some people out there in certain situations. And I think my story needs to be heard because it will benefit you in the long run. There's a couple of life experiences I could tell you on the way. I have many stories of for instances, some aha moments, some eye-opening moments too along the way that taught me. Here's one in particular, okay? Now, when I was out in California, when I was running away, before it all happened, I ran into my brother. Miraculously, I didn't even have any phone numbers when I got there. So I spent about 5 months just living in the streets. Like I said, eating soup kitchens. I even used to go to Tijuana, Mexico. I found out from people, they tell you what you got to do. Now, if you sold your blood plasma, you know, they take your blood out and they would separate the blood cells from the plasma, and then they would just take that and then they put like water saline back into the blood and put it back in your system. So they weren't just taking all your blood, but they were taking the plasma. And they'd give you like $8, $9, $12 for doing that. So yeah, that's how sometimes I was making money doing that. So I even have scars still from that. People thought I was a junkie too. They said, "What are you, junkie?" I'm like, no, I'm not down that, you know. But that was a way of just getting a few dollars, just enough to eat. But little did I know, I mean, I'm taking nutrients out of me to feed myself more nutrients to fill my belly, which was a kind of a vicious cycle in itself. Okay, I did that for a little while, and you kind of regret that, but things you had to do to survive. I eventually ran into my brother, though. I did find him in the bus station, so I stayed with him for a few months, and stayed with him, and you know, he had his girlfriend there, so he had a small house that he was living in. Now, my brother, he was older than me, my oldest brother, actually, and he was basically from the 60s. I mean, he grew up in Southern California, right during the whole, you know, that whole 60s movement generation, and he stayed out there. That was his life. Well, every summer, I guess he liked to hitchhike. Now, he was pretty much he would hitchhike and he would travel around. I mean, he was collecting Social Security. I mean, well, he decided to go to this rainbow gathering, which was like a hippie gathering festival. And so once a year, I think it still even goes on, you know, it's like the hippie rainbow gathering thing. Well, you know, he said this is what it is. So I, you know, thought, hey, this is great. So we were hitchhiking up north. Now, here's the story. So we hitchhiked, me, him, and his girlfriend. We pitched tents, and we had sleeping bags, and at night we would pitch tents on the side of the road or find places, like buyers, and we just were going up north. So by day, and we were, you know, so it took about 3 days. We traveled. Well, anyway, we stayed maybe 3 days, a couple of days. He wanted to stay over in like the San Francisco, Oakland area, which we did. He wanted to go to People's Park, and he showed me different things. I guess People's Park was a big demonstration in like the 60s, some Vietnam thing. And he wanted to show me different things in the Berkeley area, Berkeley College area. Yeah. Well, at the time I thought it was cool, and I remember doing all this, right? So, but make a long story short, we ended up getting up through Sacramento. So we were still on, I believe it was I-5 or something in Sacramento, and we got a ride from somebody, and didn't think much of it. You know, he had a earlier model, like a late 60s model Chevy Nova. Yeah, that's what it was at the time. It didn't seem like out of the question then or like abnormal, but it was an older car even then. So he said he was going up north a ways. So he gives us a ride. And he kept going. He actually gave us quite a ride. But strange things were happening, okay? Now this guy was average. He's about an average height, average build. You know, he just looked like, you know, average Joe. Yeah, and so the arrangement was, you know, Dee Dee was sitting in the front seat. Me and my brother would sit in the back seat. So that was fine. That was the arrangement they came up with. And, you know, a lot of times these guys would want to talk to the girl anyway. So that was what they wanted to do. That was the arrangement. She was kind of like the hook anyway that got us a ride half the time. Okay, that's fine. So hours went by. So he decides he's a smoker. Okay, a couple of times we actually shared a joint. Yeah, I don't do that anymore, but we were smoking marijuana. You know, we were smoking weed a little bit. So we did that too. And but everybody did. At the time, we all did that. I haven't touched the stuff in 25 years, by the way. But so anyway, bottom line is we were driving. We were driving north, and it seemed like we were going for a lot. Like I said, we probably spent hours. And he ended up giving us a ride into Oregon. But along the way, occasionally he'd get out, he'd get off the beaten path, and he'd have to use, he'd have to, go to the bathroom or whatever it was. So we'd get out, we'd stretch our legs also, and do our thing, get back in. So there's many times. A couple times he stopped for gas. Maybe my brother chipped in for gas. I can't quite remember the whole detail. But along the way, there was some strange things that glared at me happen. One time, he told me, well, he dropped a cigarette butt. He was a chain smoker. He smoked a lot of cigarettes. And the head of a cigarette butt had fallen off, just the head, and it fell onto the seat. He grabbed it with his bare fingers, okay, a smoldering piece of cigarette, and he relit the cigarette with it. I looked at him and said, "You must be a construction worker with those hands." He kind of looked back at me with a kind of a sideways, sinister grin. Like, okay, what was that? I don't know. It just read funny. So a few miles up the road, okay, he decides to pull over again. Now this time, he pulls over real close to the side of the road, okay? And outside of our door, we saw a dead deer. It was a small, looked like a young deer, and it would look like it had been decomposed. I mean, it looked like it was, it was in rough shape. It'd been there a while. So I told my brother, I said, "Hey, look at that, look at this, can you believe it?" So if we wanted to get out of the car, now this is getting me, we would have had to literally open the door and almost step on the body of this thing. It was that close, it was right outside the door. Now, he gets back in, all right? He was the only one I got at. He got back in, and I said, "Hey, did you see that dead deer out there?" And he says, "Yeah, it's been there about 3 weeks." That's all he said. So he knew about it. And he knew what he was doing. He knew he was pulling it. Did he run it over? I don't know. And a couple other times we stopped, and a couple of times we get out, and he was just staring out into the water, looking. We thought, now he started getting a little strange, acting a little strange, a little peculiar. Now we probably should have at that point. My hunch said maybe we shouldn't get back in this car, but he kept giving us a ride. My brother was kind of in the lead. I mean, he just said, "Yeah, let's go. We'll do this a little more." I kind of took the lead. I was getting nervous myself, didn't want to continue on. My brother did. So he gets in the car and he decides to continue on. So at this point here, he starts driving fast. Now he started driving fast and like down these windy roads on I-5 up in Northern California. By that time, we were going through the Sequoia National Park. We were going through different ones. We were going up way Northern California at this point. Now, I remember this. We just crossed over into Oregon. And I remember this because I saw it. This is a memory I had. But not too far off the path on I-5, there was like the first exit he took. We got off and it was kind of like a smaller off-ramp route. Now he got off and now there was an opening cul-de-sac. By this time it was starting to get just a little bit dusk. Just starting to get dark, but it wasn't quite dark yet, but it was just starting to. So he got off and he pulled over into this cul-de-sac, this kind of clearing, overlooking kind of a canyon looking thing, kind of just an open area. So he got up, and I thought, okay, this is just one of his stops, he's going to stop. Well, he walked around to the other side of the car and he opened up the passenger door. He grabbed Dee Dee's arm, that was her name, and he said, "I told you I wanted to talk to you." So by this time, she looked in the back seat, said, "Fred." She was terrified. I could see she was horrified by this, okay? So I flipped the bucket seat up, and I got out. She stayed in the front seat. I got out of the back seat, and I stood right in front of her, knowing that, I don't know what's going to happen now. I really didn't know. But it got spooky at this point. And so then I remember my brother got out. He started getting the luggage out of the car, okay? That's all. So I So now Dee Dee got out. That was her name. She got out of the car, and now this guy started following her, and he started kind of like putting his hands in his hair, and he started brushing it back, and he started saying, "I just wanted to talk to you." By this time, she's terrified. She's like, "Fred," she's kind of almost petrified. And I'm like, why is he doing this? I mean, it was right in front of me. It just seemed peculiar. It just seemed odd. It didn't seem right. Well, I just kind of got in between him and her and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And right away, he put on like a praying mantis. His hands went up, and he started hissing at me like a snake. And he started giving me these dagger snake eyes as he hissed. He looked rather crazy and, frankly, a little evil. Okay? But this is the moment. This was a moment that something clicked in my now this is the pivotal moment of my teaching moment. Something clicked in my mind, said, "You can't fear this guy. He's trying to intimidate you. He wants to intimidate you. He wants to frighten you. He wants you to run so he can gain control of the situation." Well, I pushed him back, and I gave him psycho eyes back and said, "I'm not afraid of you, you effing psycho," or something. And then he started trying to grab at me, with his hand. So I just kind of wrestled him back, and I pushed him back, and I gave him a look and says, "I'm not afraid of you, and I'll kill you if I have to." I just said that. I felt like in that moment something took over, not something out of malice, not something. It just seemed like something took over in me, and I'm just a skinny little 16-year-old kid. I wasn't really all that big a kid. I had been just in the streets for 5 months. I was pretty thin. I mean, but the thing was my tenacity. Something came out of me that said I have to just diffuse this, and at this point here, he just kind of looked like defeated, like he didn't know what to do, like he figured I would just be easily manipulated, easily intimidated, and he would just win the situation. But I knew I couldn't do that. I remember saying things to him like, "You gave us a ride all this time. What did you think we were going to do? Did you think I was just going to let you, take advantage of right in front of me? What are you, effing stupid?" I mean, I was basically, I was swearing a little bit. I was angry, but at the same time, adrenaline was kicking in. Now, at the same time, my brother was getting the gear out of the car. Dee Dee ran, she kind of took off, got over to my brother, and so finally, we just got out of there. I just remember saying, okay, he just kind of was looking off into the distance at this point, like confused, like didn't really know how to handle it, like he just looked like off. So I knew there was something crazy about the guy, but as the ride wore on, it really started getting stranger, and to this point here. So finally, I said, "Fred, make sure he doesn't run us over." I remember thinking, because he got in the car and he was driving back, okay? And I remember watching the car, like making sure he wasn't going to do just that, okay? But he didn't. He just took off. He went the way we came. He went back the way we came. So that made me think, well, where was he going? Was it just, Now, bottom line is we ended up, my brother even told me that as he was unloading the car, now this just gets me, I didn't see this at the time, but as he was unloading the car, he said he found leather straps under the seat. And he said he said in his quote, they looked like leather straps, like they were used for tying somebody up. That, I never saw them. I never did. I just remember him making that. I said, "Well, where are they?" He said he threw them over the embankment. He just threw them out. I mean, obviously I didn't see that, but never saw the straps, but just going what my brother said. Needless to say, we ended up camping out far off the road. We didn't want to keep hitchhiking just in case he came back. By this time it was getting dark anyway, and so we went way off the road and we camped out, and so the rest is history. We kept an eye out, making sure he wouldn't come back that night looking for us. But I never forgot that. But I guess the lesson is just that. Sometimes, you have to be crazier than crazy to survive in this world. You have to be crazier than the human animal. And it taught me too. I mean, I think the only thing that really intimidates somebody who's psychotic or crazy is somebody more crazy. It taught me a lesson. It's like sometimes you have to be crazy in this world in order to survive. Now, needless to say, nothing like that quite ever happened ever again. But it was a learning moment in my life. I don't know quite what it was. I told you the story as it happened, and but that's what it is. I mean, you have to stand up, not feel fearful. So my instinct was not to be fearful and cower, but to rise. In fact, rise even more so. But I did feel like if it got any worse, I would have fought as hard as I could to defeat him. I felt like I knew I had the adrenaline to do so. It didn't happen, but I would have put in every ounce of energy I could have to survive. So it taught me something about myself. It gave me a glimpse into myself, and thought, well, you know, this is how I would be, and this is how we all need to be in certain situations and circumstances as well. But now, how does this translate? Here's something. How would this story translate into, let's say, an example in the human kingdom to the animal kingdom? Okay, certain animals out there have to rise to the occasion in order to defend themselves. Here's an example. Imagine if the puffer fish. Here's a great one. A puffer fish feels threatened by its example. Okay, something's coming along. Bigger fish wants to swallow it, devour it. So what does it do? It puffs up with water. It goes from a skinny fish. It puffs up, and now all of a sudden it's like a balloon. But also it has these sharp kind of quills and barbs on the end of it too, which just make it uncomfortable to swallow. So that's a defense. Now, is the puffer fish? It's not a fighting animal, but it makes itself larger and it makes itself bigger in a situation of defense. All right. So, in a situation like that, it was more of a psychological test. Being that human beings, the human animal is the most advanced creature that we know. We are a hybrid. We are flesh and bone. We're body, but we're also spiritual. We have a spiritual code that we're infused with. We're not just animal on instincts. We're not just relying on survival by our senses, by our surroundings, but we're also relying on an internal spiritual survival as well that comes from a beyond. And sometimes it in certain situations, it's almost like something divine has to take over. And if you're in tap with that divine, then it's going to be more prevalent in your reaction, in your actions, and who you are as far as your daily life. So I think I solemnly believe that it is spiritual, and it does come from beyond sometimes as far as our reactions to the world that we live in. Only because we are the highest evolved creation. Okay, I mean, we're not even evolved. I mean, I do believe. Is there a God? I believe that. Maybe not everybody believes in God. You might be somebody who questions that. Maybe you believe in the universe. You believe in what the universe provides, and that's your belief. Maybe you do have a belief in a higher authority. A lot of us do, but we believe in God. But depending on what your belief is, we have something spiritual that guides us, that is separate and more elaborate than the animals and the animal kingdom. Well, folks, listen, that was my story of the day. Maybe it was a little bit long-winded. I mean, I try to tell a story. I hope you like what listen. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would, please subscribe to my channel. I mean, this is basically who I am, what I am. Okay, I'm going to be as frank with you as I can. Okay, I'd like to give you some of my life experiences and how I survived them sometimes. Now, trust me, that's just one story that I have. I have quite a few stories that happen. And trust me, they're all true. They are true to the best of my ability to remember and recollect exactly what happened, how it happened. I'm going to give it to you. And if there's any way you could learn from this, I'd be glad to share this. So if you give me thumbs up, if you give me some comments, and subscribe to my channel, I'll make more content. And I'll make this content enjoyable. And I'd like to even evolve myself in a way to where I could make better videos, maybe make documentaries. But I got a lot to learn. I'm still trying to learn the technology behind the phone, behind the the YouTube, as far as the picture in the picture. So I do have a lot I have to evolve in that way as far as the learning curve into the YouTube thing. But people, this is who I am. And this is Rudy O'Mega. This is my experience. And I hope you learned something. And please, you're invited back for another segment of Understanding the Human Animal. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.